Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. We'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. I want to say thank you for all who have joined us in person or online. We'll first start our meeting with our land acknowledgement. Are we? And we'll ask Deja Reed to please read our land acknowledgement.
Okay. We honor the first peoples of these lands by acknowledging that the area in which we gather is within the traditional territory of the Stillaguamish tribe of Indians. The Stillaguamish people have inhabited these lands and waters since time immemorial, and their ancestors have remained in this territory to this day. The Stillaguamish people have continued to practice the traditional ways of their ancestors of fishing, hunting, and gathering. The Stillaguamish tribe has had these lands and cultural traditions passed on to them by their ancestors who believe that everything has a spirit and that they are caretakers of these lands and waters.
Thank you, Deja. Next up, we'll have our Pledge of Allegiance. Will everyone please rise and join me? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next, we'll have our roll call attendance. Madam Clerk.
Director Diamond,
Here.
Director Kelly,
Here.
Director Watts,
Here.
President Levesque,
Here.
Director Knapp,
Here.
Student Advisor Nichols, Student Advisor Reed,
Here.
Superintendent Sweden.
Here. Thank you. Next, we'll have our approval of the agenda. Is there anything anyone would like to change on the agenda, or do we have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
Motion to approve agenda as presented.
I'll second. It's been moved by Director Diamond and seconded by Director Watts to approve the agenda as presented. Madam Clerk.
Director Diamond,
Aye.
Director Kelly,
Aye.
Director Watts,
Aye.
President Levesque,
Aye.
Director Knapp.
Aye. Thank you. The agenda is approved as presented. And that brings us to our presentation portion of our meeting. We're delighted to welcome our Weston High School students and staff to talk about the wellness initiative at Weston. Start with Andrea Hunter Mark Dixon. And we've got students Ashton and Jaden and Counselor Katie Brown and CTE teacher Stephanie Jordan. We want to say thank you and especially a warm welcome to our Mabel, our sweet doggy in training.
Thank you guys all for having us come and present. And you're welcome in advance for the most fun board meeting with a golden retriever. I'm gonna turn it over shortly to these guys who are gonna talk about wellness at Weston and what that means. But I briefly want to share with the board and the superintendent that what we have heard at least twice this year, one from our consultant working with the district, is that the strategies and practices that we have in place at Weston specific to dealing with mental health and wellness are so far ahead of the curve of emerging practices that schools all over the country are thinking about implementing. So I want to commend the staff for embracing it early and kind of being trendsetters in this and allow you guys to hear authentically the impact that it's having on our kids. So without further ado, Katie Brown.
All right, so last year I included this in our presentation, but I think it's really important. It's our mission statement. And our goal really is to be guiding students towards their authentic selves with a big focus on well-being and academic growth. We offer predictability, flexibility, connection, and flexibility. I have a hard time remembering all four of them. But one of the big things that we continue to work on and focus on is the well-being of our students. And we have expanded on that. So we did this presentation and we talked a lot about the things that we were currently doing. And since that, which has been about a year, we've continued to build on that and improve things at Weston. So we wanted to talk a little bit about that today. So currently what we have going on at Weston, mental health counseling. Pam is our mental health counselor. She has been, and we're fortunate to have her back this year full time with us. We have a lot of students who meet with her, on a regular basis. We continue to have student support advocacy with Travis this year, and he has worked really closely with a lot of our families and our students, lately helping with a lot of our housing needs of our older students, which has been fantastic. Our extracurricular activities, we had students last year talk about our D&D and our Magic Club, which Mr. Farrell happens to be right here, our most popular club at Weston. But we also have a HOSA club, which is our health occupation. What does HOSA stand for?
Well, it used to be an acronym for it, and now they just call it, they kept it open, but it's now just future health care professionals.
Gotcha. And then we also have a debate club, which is brand new this year. So we have a good crew of kids who stay after school in a debate club. So this is the first in many years that we've had these offerings. And then that leads me to animal assisted interventions, which last year we had Scotty with us. And this year we want to introduce Mabel. Mabel has been with us since the start of the school year, and I'm going to let Ashton talk a little bit about her role at Weston, their role in working with her at Weston. There you go.
I've been watching over Mabel since she was a puppy here at Weston. She has been a great addition here with her goofiness and way to brighten our day. My role with Mabel is to regularly take her out to the restroom and make sure her needs are attended to. I also bring her on walks when she needs to relieve her energy and just to breathe.
Yeah,
I don't mind. Hi, Grace.
they need those.
Uh-huh.
I help with their training and take responsibility in her care and needs.
Mhm. Yep, absolutely. How would you say Mabel has helped improve the overall wellness and mental health of students?
Whenever kids are having a bad day, they come to school and Mabel is there to help maybe brighten.
Yep.
A bad day.
Sure, absolutely. Next up, we're going to introduce Jaden to talk to us a little bit about Care Jordan. Let's enjoy our beautiful images here.
Hi, my name is Jaden, and I feel like the Care Jordan has been a great way to stay active during the school year. And it's basically just like having a free gym membership. And we don't have like that much equipment yet, but we're getting new equipment soon. So it's gonna be a lot better. And even without the equipment, we still have dumbbells. You can do a lot of different exercises with. And
How do you feel like, what does it do for you in terms of just throughout the school day, if you're able to get in there and work out? How does it help you in school?
well, it's also a good way to relieve stress working out during the school day. Something might happen, you can just go work out. Relieve stress.
Yeah, these guys have used the gym before school on occasion, and they are pretty regularly, and they're using it in PE as well too.
They're my workout buddies during PE, so
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
they get to put up with, if it's gonna be my only workout for the day, I'm like, okay, boys, this is it. You're gonna have to put up with it. So they've been good sports.
And then down here are images of when we have all of the equipment, right? This is what we hope that everything will look like, put together. And then up top at conferences, we have the staff all sort of stage themselves using the equipment, so it doesn't always look like that, but. Okay,
All right. So these two have been super instrumental in this little gal. And just kind of keeping things a rolling with her, as well as part of our gym. The other thing we are starting to implement in here at Weston is, or I'm going through some training, it's like 200 hours of intensive training for mindful movement. And so with the intention that we are going to be expanding, as we're expanding our gym, we're also hoping to expand our PE offerings. And so with mindfulness and just having a course hopefully up and ready by next year for mindful movement and mindfulness. So with this 200 kind of intensive hours, it's really focusing on transformation of self so that then you can transform relationships, which then can transform our community and our community as a whole. And so one of the big things that I've been noticing as I go through this training is that at Weston, as we're kind of keep hearing and seeing, we're kind of doing a lot of the stuff. So we really focus on what's called the TEACH method. So we're trauma informed. We do that at Weston. The E is for equity based. And so we are trying to find ways for kids to move that's equitable for them. The A is going to be accessibility, which happens to be one of our kind of, pillars in our mission statement. The C is for community based. And I think at Weston, we really have created a community. And so in all of it for the H so that we can heal. And so I think all of us as just a community could all use healing. And so that's kind of where we're going with that on the Breathe for Change.
Steph and I had an opportunity in early October to attend a Wellness Together conference. It was based out of Anaheim. We attended remotely, so we got to see some really cool panelists talk about what's going on in the mental health world. What we found is that a lot of what we're doing at Weston, best practices, trends that are emerging are things that we're currently doing at Weston. So it was reassuring to hear that we're moving in the right direction. And that we will continue to build on what we've started to build, because we really do have a pretty awesome community at Weston of students and families. So
Looking forward to just really, like she said, we're headed the right way,
Yeah.
right? And there were some great ideas of things that were like, so we're getting some of that groundwork laid for those types of initiatives and collaborations.
Ashton, tell them the mascot idea.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So what are we currently?
Think that instead of the Panthers, we should be the Golden Retrievers.
Yeah.
Or the retrievers, the credit retriever.
Yeah. And there's so many fitting ways that retriever could be used, yes.
Any questions from the board?
I have a couple questions. One question was, when do you get to access the gym? Do you, like, if something was overwhelming you, would you have the ability to make the request of your teacher, like, hey, I need a break, I need 15 minutes, like, do you get passes? Can you earn time in the gym? What does that look like?
Well, you can go in, I'm pretty sure we're trying to make it accessible at lunch for students to use. And you can go in during Panther period if you have no work to do extra.
So that's encouraging. And second thing for my more administrative level people, have you had any of our legislators, I think Clyde Shivers may have been there, but have you had anyone else, or when's the last time a legislator has been to your school to see this? Because I would really want to broadcast.
Yes, I would agree, and they get invited, as well as OSPI and their parent community engagement initiatives.
Mhm.
I've invited them to come see what it looks like being done right.
Okay,
So feel free when you are engaging with them that Weston would love to have them as visitors as a part of is it AWSP? Some legislators were also visiting schools, and I signed Weston up as one for them to come and visit. I haven't heard, so. But yes, we are. I have a feeling that there will be more foot traffic as kind of word begins to get out that seemingly we're the model school right now that serves this population of kids as to how to do it and how to do it right.
I would even argue that having something at the local level like Snohomish County Council would be very curious to see what's in their backyard.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, I'll either reach out to you or see what kind of connections. Yeah, that'd be great. I think this is definitely something to continue. You're a model and, it should be showcased and yeah, kudos to everyone at Weston for putting this together and staying the course. Yeah, it's great.
Another question.
I have a question. Does Mabel ever get the Zoomies?
Yes.
You strike right now.
The other day she did in your
Yeah,
office
she
a
did.
little bit. She will like to
Yeah.
get up on, she uses things as like kind of a wall, like they do in NASCAR, you know, kind of thing.
Yeah, she sort of fishtailed into my office this morning, up onto the couch.
She has her certain spots she loves to be in, although the Zunies haven't been as prevalent as a little indication of some stubbornness. She knows she gets a lot of love out in the commons. And so when it's time to go back into class, where the boys and I are like dragging her and trying, she's like, I know where the love comes right here. So she's she's
We've watched her though in crisis situations or stressful situations, even today, help an escalated student calm down. So she's definitely at 6 months old, doing a lot of good work and having a big impact on our students. As she cheers on her best.
as she, yeah, it's been a long day. We are still 6 months old.
Yeah.
Some days it shows.
Yeah.
So, yeah, she definitely, some days kind of earns her keep. So it's pretty remarkable to watch her. Just the impact she has and just kind of an intuitive ability. You can kind of see her energy shift a little bit from student to student. Kind of depending upon what they need. So she'll approach, she'll just approach different students in different ways. So, and they've just been really great with, as a whole, just being part of her training. I mean, I think they are invested in her and feel like they're kind of, and this is their dog, right? So she might go home with me, but they definitely, they have a big part in that. So, and we kind of leverage that and I think that helps her a little bit too.
Thank you. So does she come to school every day?
She doesn't. She comes to school typically Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. We've noticed by the third day, sometimes she's a little tired. And sometimes that comes out as a little spicy. So she spends a little more time with Katie Brown. That's kind of her calm place, right? If she needs to, it's a little challenge. I didn't quite know how it would work with me having to be in the classroom and whatnot, but I have a crew that we just kind of do whatever Mabel needs at that time. And so it's one of the things with the training is just really making sure that they can't be working all the time, right? They're animals, they need to, so we give her breaks, but yeah, usually 3 days a week.
What happened to Scotty Pittman?
Scotty is still in the picture in theory. Scotty comes on Monday and Friday, so we
Okay.
have a animal assistant team. There's also Louie in the transitions lab, like Weston has gone to the Goldens. Scotty Pippin's training needs to continue to be refined.
Oh, okay.
Right, like we're
Perfection.
using positive words, so we're still working on that, which is why.
A dog in progress.
usually- Right,
Good to know.
yes, but he's still part of the team of therapy dogs in training.
Perfect. Nice. And how old is Mabel?
She's 6 months.
Yeah, she looks young.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So she started in September, so when school started, so.
Oh,
Right on cue.
yeah, I'm done.
I done. But yeah.
Nice. So can we bring her to all of our board meetings?
Girl.
Just our presenting Shavers will be at Weston on Tuesday, November 26th at 9:00. Great.
Oh,
Yeah,
on Tuesday.
That's a Mabel Day.
It's a Mabel Day.
Oh,
It's a
great.
Mabel Day.
thank you, Debbie.
Yeah, we were at, I think it was KP, and there was a therapeutic dog there, or there was a dog on campus that they have.
Nikki Brooks dog.
Yeah, Nikki Brooks dog, that's right, you were there.
Yes.
Was that was KP,
Yeah.
right?
And just to ask real quick regarding that, on the budget, how do you acquire the dog? Is it expensive to acquire a therapy dog? I think Andrea talked about training and the hours and Like, could that be a
Yeah,
budget
this is
item?
all privately funded. Steph has privately funded Mabel. I have privately funded Scotty. We have found that the OSPI grants don't. We could probably look to private grants, or I know the tribe has
Mhm.
funded some in other districts. But this is just staff having a commitment to
Feels
Yep.
the show for sure.
Good to know. Well, just, yeah, maybe that'd be a mentioning to our rep coming in, just that it's privately funded, and what would it cost if the OSPI wanted to jump in and
yes.
front the bill?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Are there any further questions from anyone on the board? Thank you very much
Thank
for
you.
coming.
Thank you.
Oh, well, that was the funnest presentation. Next up, we're gonna have our approval of the minute. And you're welcome to stay, Weston friends, but you don't have to.
It was like,
Have a good
thank you, good night. She's right.
Oh.
We're tired. We're coming to her.
So next up, we have our approval of the minutes. We have two sets of minutes. We have our study session and regular meeting minutes from October 28th. And then we have a special meeting event attendance, student advisory council, youth, mental health forum minutes from November 6th. Do we have any changes for the regular and study session minutes from October 28th? Or do we have a motion to approve them as presented?
Motion to approve minutes as presented.
I'll second. It's been moved by Director Diamond and seconded by Director Knapp to approve the October 28th meeting minutes as presented. Madam Clerk. Director Diamond,
Yay.
Director Kelly,
I am.
Director Watts,
Aye.
President Levesque. Yay. Director Knapp. Yes. Those meeting minutes are approved. Next up, we have our special meeting, event attendance, student advisory council, etc. minutes from November 6th. Do we have a motion to approve?
I make a motion, we approve.
I'll second. It's been moved by Director Kelly and seconded by Director Watts to approve the special meeting event attendance, student advisory council, youth, mental health forum minutes from November 6th. Madam Clerk. Director Diamond.
Yes.
Director Kelly.
Yes.
Director Watts. Aye. President Levesque. Yes. Director Knapp. Yes. Those minutes are also approved. And next up, we would have our public comment portion of our meeting. Do we have anyone signed up to speak in advance?
We do not.
Is there anyone in our audience who would like to address the board this evening? Okay, we will move right along to our consent agenda. That includes our budget reports, personnel reports, payroll report, warrants, an amazing gridiron donation to the AHS football, the overnight out-of-state field trip for the band to go to Disneyland, an out-of-state trip for Amy Henry, instructional materials and program committee members, and University of Southwest College of Education School Counseling Program MOU, and then the EVCC CTE dual credit articulation agreement for 24-25. Do we have anything anyone would like to pull from the agenda for further review? Or do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as.
I second.
It's been moved by Director Watts and seconded by Director Kelly to approve the consent agenda as presented. Madam Clerk. Director Diamond.
Aye.
Director Kelly.
Aye.
Director Watts.
Yes.
President Levesque. Aye. Director Knapp. Aye. Consent agenda is approved. And that brings us to our new business portion of our meeting. And the first item of our new business portion is our donation from the Arlington Education Foundation, the AEF, for their 2024 fall mini grants. And we'd like to welcome Kim Deisher Allen and friend. Nicole, come on in. Come on up.
I do have to remember my coat. I'm sweating already. Holy cow. Hello. I am Kim Deisher Ellen, as Mary just said. I'm super excited to be here. I am a teacher in the district, but tonight I have a very special role. I'm also the president of the Arlington Education Foundation. And so tonight we will be presenting some awards. Nicole Boschel is with me today. She's going to hand out the certificates. She is also on the board, as well as Dr. Chris Sweeting, Nicole Watts, and past board member, Mary Levesque. But, I'm gonna put my glasses on to read this. Pittsburgh Center. So, so of course, it's my honor to be here tonight to announce the recipients of the Arlington Education Foundation for the fall 2024 classroom mini grants. This is our 13th year awarding mini grants. And over those 13 years, we have been able to donate over $195,000 in grants. So it's pretty exciting. This fall was a banner year. We had 35 applications, and we're excited to fund 25 of those applications tonight. So we're going to be giving out a total of $16,849.42 to 25 classroom teachers, grade levels, or specialty teams within our district. So before I hand those out, I'm just going to give you a little quick synopsis of what the grant process is, or what the recipients have to meet to be accepted as a grant and to go through the approval process. So each grant is reviewed against the following criteria. The first one is have clear standards-based academic goals. The second is to provide long-term sustainability. The third is to provide inclusion and equity. The fourth is to have an innovative idea or an element of technology. And the fifth is to ideally have an opportunity for family involvement. So grants can be structured, grants can either be $500 for an individual classroom or up to $1,250 for a department or a team. So tonight, I see we have a few members here getting some grants, so I'm super excited about that. If someone's not here, they will definitely get this certificate later, so they'll be getting a certificate for their grant, as well as an AEF bookmark. Definitely want to move this. All right. So I'm just going to read right off the grant. So the first one, and if you're here, just come on up. We'll give it to you. I know that we'll be getting a picture at the end. And if someone's not here, I'm still going to read the grant and we'll send it to them through district mail. So the first one is for Rebecca Rodriguez from Pioneer. And this was books for bilingual readers. And I did not see it. She's the district. The next one is for the 4th grade team at Eagle Creek for enriching projects, garden, fish, and wheat. All righty. The next one, I do see this person here, Karen Garzella from Eagle Creek, and we are champion storytellers. Thank you so much. Which we have several of those this year, so that's exciting. Very exciting. The next one is for Thomas Ramirez, the science grade team at SBLC for a magnetic molecular modeling fit. The next one's Lisa Thompson, Eagle Creek Elementary, 3rd grade literacy. The next one's Julie Polkinghorn and grade team, Eagle Creek, 4th grade teacher, t-shirt project, excuse me. The next one is for Crystal Williams and grade team at President's Elementary for SEL curriculum for elementary counselors. Proper wait time. The next one is for Britt Kleiman, who is at Post Middle School, to access inclusion and representation in the library. It's a very long list. This is very exciting. The next one is for Beth Lawrence at Camp Prairie Elementary, bringing clarity to the communication of students on the autism spectrum. Kim Contreras at Arlington High School, nurturing multilingual readers. Susan Cotton and grade team at President's Elementary for Destination Imagination. Congratulations. Jennifer Ansbach, Eagle Creek Elementary, SLP support for students with communication disorders. The next one's Brandy Carter and Janelle Sable from SBLC, Reading for Success. Pat Baxter at SBLC and President and Apple for integration of literacy-based materials into speech and language intervention. Sean Farrell from Weston High School, whiteboard, flip charts, and classroom vertical surfaces at Weston High School. Becca Harkavy, Arlington High School, books for boys. Miranda Anderson and second grade team at Eagle Creek Elementary, plant and animal life cycle projects. Emily Gannon at Post Middle School, STAR Program 2nd Edition Level 3. Nicole Murphy, President's Elementary, Sensory and Fine Motor Activities for Pre-K SEL Classroom. Rebecca Connor, Post Middle School, Molecular Gastronomy, Math and more. So many assistants. The next one's Bailey Newell and grade team for President's Elementary, Imaginative Playground Play. Jennifer Peters, Haller Middle School, Home Corner for all students. Tyra Swanson, Apple ECAP Preschool, Inclusive Tools for Development.
You're scared of us.
Trina Sanford, Pioneer Elementary School, Math Kindergarten Hands-on Centers to support number sense and mathematical thinking. Ashley Colbeck, President and Haller Middle School, Story Champs Language Building Materials. All right. That should be 25 awards read off, and we are so proud and happy to donate or to support the Arlington School District in that way. Can we give them a round of applause?
Gary wants a picture.
Can we get a group shot? Can I have the board stand up and I'll have all the
Remind me that. this
teachers
is
that are
an
standing in
action
front of
item.
you? So everyone come in front here.
I'm not gonna have my glasses on. Ditches my glasses.
It's a huge group. It's awesome.
I know.
Okay, so no hiding in the back. I see we'll see faces. Squeeze in the back a little here. Okay, thanks. You ready? Okay. Perfect. Right here. Okay, we'll take a couple different ones. So look right here, no blinking. Look right here. Awesome. Hold it, hold it. Hold it. Looks great. Maybe when and she can show me all your certificates. Well, they're all up right. There you go. Look right here. Awesome. That's great. And one more for insurance. That's great. Thank you so much.
So this is an action item. We have a motion to approve the donation from the Arlington Education Foundation. $16,849.42.
Make the motion, we approve.
I second that motion.
It's been moved by Director Knapp and seconded by Director Diamond to approve the donation of $16,849.42 from the Arlington Education Foundation as presented. Madam Clerk. Director Diamond.
Yes.
Director Kelly.
Aye.
Director Watt. Aye. President Levesque. Aye. Director Knapp.
Yes.
Thank you. That motion passes and that donation is accepted. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It was an honor and a privilege to have all of these wonderful things happen in our district. Thank you.
And I will say that our grant committee said this every year, these grants just keep getting better.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is our very exciting 2023-24 fiscal year end report, F 196 financial. We'd like to welcome Gina Zutenhorst. You have some tough acts to follow.
Yes, definitely. I need more of those. Pop us up some more. So yes, have closed out the fiscal year for 23-24, and I'm reporting out to you on summarized version of the F-196. That's what they call the financial statements for school districts in Washington State. And it is in a standard format that all school districts report under. So we can move into the next slide. And just a reminder, fiscal year runs September 1 to August 31st. And then the deadline to submit the F-196 is October 25. It takes a few months during accounting close the year season to make all the entries that are required in doing this type of work. And then we're able to finish that up and wrap it up by October 25th. So I'll be presenting kind of a summary, high level of the general fund, which is the main fund that we're mostly interested in. And then a brief summary on the other funds as well, because we have our Associated Student Body Fund, debt service, capital projects, and transportation vehicle funds. So we'll take a peek at those two. The F-196 is a pretty thick, long document with a lot of reports. And it is attached, the next slide, to the board plate, and all of the public can access that there. Here's a quick summary. The first page of that is showing you high level fund balance, what we started with, total revenues and other financing sources, expenditures, and our ending fund balance. It shows you what that looks like up against the 23-24 budget. And it also gives you a column just showing you what it was, what the actuals were for last year. And then there's a column showing the dollar difference. And then what that percentage is in terms of as a percentage, the dollar amount as a percentage change. So something that we have all been following quite closely is fund balance. And so now we have the true number of where we're ending for fiscal year 23-24. And that number is, you see it there, $1.296 million. So that is as planned. The expenditures exceeded revenues, but ending fund balance is decreasing by 2.5 million. Now we have staunched that trend going into 24-25, so we will not be exceeding the revenues next year. And our next slide is our fund balance chart. The fund balance trend, where it'll have the 4 years uplaid against each other, with the bottom line being 23-24 fiscal year. And we've talked about this repeatedly, so the trends when it's up and the trends when it's down, and that in this last fiscal year, we reached a point where we would be in the negative in June and July, and that we had interfund loans to help us get through those periods. And I'm just making certain that it's clear to the board that we have fully paid back all of what was borrowed from the capital projects fund, including any interest that would as appropriate. And that was all paid back even by August 31st.
And a quick question, can you remind us again on the pink, which is 2021? That trend that went up, which is unlike any other color falling?
Yes, that
What
is
was that from again?
during the COVID years, and that is when we were filing for ESSER funds, and we were able to receive a pretty
So we
big
were given
infusion,
that
and
number.
propped
Okay.
up by some of the funding that was coming through in response to the pandemic,
Yeah.
state and federal.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's, okay, so that must have kicked in the
Yes.
mid-spring or something, then I see that, okay.
Like
April,
November, December. The claim, oh, yeah.
oh, I'm looking
sorry,
at the
October.
one that goes, because everyone else goes down
Oh.
and that one goes from
It's
April to May.
Another,
No.
yes, state funding
Push.
infusion.
Okay, okay,
And the yellow line has kind of some weird
yeah,
ESSER funds.
the other ones just go
Yeah.
mirror almost exactly.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
So those 2 years, 2021 and 21-22, they're all manner of different things happening during that time because of that being in the middle of the pandemic. Next slide, please. So just recalling that board policy would have us be more in a high level for our fund balance, and that we are also allowed by board policy to be lower than that, because it allows for flexibility in times of emergency. And then the next slide is just making sure that in this presentation and available to the public, we've been familiar with the conditions that were happening just prior to and during the pandemic and after the pandemic, that were explaining what was going on with the fund balance and why we are where we're at. And that budget reductions were implemented for 23-24 and 24-25. So we are on our way to coming back from that to build our fund balance back up. And so next slide, we're going to talk more in detail. Again, we're focusing on 23-24 in this presentation, just the closeout of that year, and that I'm pulling figures that are from the official standard report, the F-196. And the format that it provides that is by dictated state account codes. And so they have dictated exactly how we are to code the revenues that we receive. So in 23-24, we received 95.4 million. And then these are the categories that we receive it under. And you might note there's a couple that have more than we were expecting to get. And so I'll explain more about that. If we go to the next slide, this shows you kind of in a pie chart and in context to the different sources where our main and primary source of funding comes from. You can see that 62% of our revenues came from state, that is regular, pretty much the basic state funding. And then 21% of that is state special funds. So they're designated for a special program or a particular program. So those two combined make up 83% of district programs. And then our taxes show there, and that as 10% in the orange slice there to the right of the biggest piece. And so that's 10% of our funds. And then local non-tax and other funds is 2%. And then federal dollars fund 5%. So they're still significant and relied upon source, those federal funds, but they are a smaller percentage of our overall revenues.
Gina, can you give us any context? Not sure if you've been in your capacity long enough, but historically, has the federal government given more? Like, what would be the highest that you've seen, or like at what? At what
9%.
9%?
10%, when during the ESSER years, I think it was higher than 5% for sure. But the percentage as makeup of the total, I guess I really couldn't speak to that.
Yeah,
I
just
would
wondered
say it
for-
grew, and it is probably shrinking in context to local funds and state funds. Yeah, if you're looking at it as a percentage of the whole, it's still been increasing, but it's making up a smaller piece of the pie. During ESSER, we did receive a large influx of federal funds in particular, so it did change that chart somewhat. And actually, if anybody was interested, they could go back and look at the fiscal years in board docs and look at this pie chart, and you can see during the ESSER years that percentage is greater.
Yeah, I was just wondering if, it seems to me that I want to say when we had No Child Left Behind with George Bush, I felt like there was a greater percentage of federal dollars going to states towards education. And I want to say it was as high as 9%. I'd have to check on that, but I remember reading something that there were more dollars at the federal level, and
Yeah,
5% just seems,
perhaps.
Yeah.
Yeah,
not sure how we would push to change that, but
yeah,
again, we're so reliant on the local at every level. It
Right.
just keeps.
yeah.
more-
I'm trying to remember because I
Mhm.
was preparing for things like this during those years too.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, curious. Okay, thanks.
yeah. So we'll go to the next slide. And so I want to talk a little bit about the areas where revenue were more than planned. And that is mainly in the state general revenues. The number on the chart, or the figure before, we received 58.2 million in our state general revenues.
that is because our enrollment was higher than we had built into the budget. And we, in the end, it was about 109 students more full-time equivalent students, FTE, than planned. And also to put that in context, we did plan for some increased enrollment that was built into our budget. So that 109 is more than planned, but we also grew 60 from what we had the year before. So, and when we talk about annual average full-time equivalent, that is what all of our state funding, the big apportionment level of funding is based. The average that we had across the 9 months that we are having school. Is it 10? The average across those months where students are in attendance. And that's what drives that funding. And then the next slide, then the other area where we received more than we had budgeted is state special purpose revenues. And the main driver of that increase, we received 18.9 million. And it was about 1.5 or so more than we had built into the budget. And those are due to special education. And there is an increase in student enrollment in that area, but also we received a large amount of that safety net funds. And those are meant to help offset the cost of some of the higher need situations that we have within our population of students with special needs. Then the next little bits that make up an increase that is within that state special purpose revenue, we received a little bit more transportation revenues than we had built into the budget. And we also got outdoor education funds last year. I think was the first year or can't recall for sure, but we have that was a nice bonus to receive the outdoor education funds so that students could go to 5th grade camp. And the next page. So that is where our revenues, high level summary. And now we can take a dive into general fund expenditures. And we'll take a look at those. So this page reminds us that the state again has very detailed coding that's required for school districts to attach to each dollar that we spend and code within our financial software system. The first category is by program. The second category is by activity. The next is object, location, and then subfund. So I will tell you a little bit more about, well, what does that mean in the following slides. So next is, we'll first talk about by program. Oh, here's a little bit of the words right here. So, but first we'll talk by program. And so next slide is the numbers by program. And again, these are also somewhat summarized because within regular instruction, this also includes our alternative learning experience program. It includes our open doors program. That's our regular instruction program, along with all of the basic education program. And then we have a small piece there that says federal special purpose, and that was a small grant for the preschool, the Apple preschool. I think on the slide, it still says learn to return, which was a previous year federal grant that we do not have anymore, but it does still show as a higher number in the 22-23 actual column for the federal special purpose. And is there a question?
I have a question. Okay, so how much did we spend? If you put the state and the federal special education together, how much did we spend over budget for all of our special ed?
About 2 million
That's a lot.
is what it shows there, yeah. And that's over what was budgeted.
Yeah.
That was gonna be my follow-up question is, the previous slide said it was like 1.3 or something, 1.5
We
over.
got that much more than we
Okay.
expected in revenues.
So
Yeah,
it's
right.
Safety net,
So,
Yeah.
so
So
even
it's-
with
If you
that,
net
we're
that,
still,
Mhm.
and that's, so
Okay.
that's including
Yeah.
safety net, like we're negative 2 million, including this 1.3 that we got from safety net.
I will rephrase this. So if you take all special education revenues and all special education expenditures,
Okay.
we spent 1.4 million more than we received in revenues.
got it.
And these pictures are if we show, this is what we planned to spend in the original budget. This is what we actually spent in the original budget. We spent 2.1 million more in the state special education category than we had planned when we set the budget originally. Now, some of that is offset by safety net, some of that is offset by additional enrollment in students. But other costs are things that happen as the year goes on. And students are assessed and have unique needs that we have to react to and provide for. So 1.4 million is what we spent more than. So that is what we would say the state is not providing adequate for. All right, and then, so you can see the main categories there, and that is the makeup of the expenditures by program. And I want to just also point out that career and technical education, we are not in the negative for that program. That is a picture, it should be, it's not to be construed as them overspending their budget. What that represents is, hey, when we put the original budget out, we planned at this level, and it was rather on a little bit of the conservative side. But as the actual fiscal year comes along and the actual enrollment for CTE comes in, then the funding is adjusted to that. And we have to align our expenditures to that in providing and spending a certain level for CTE. And so that's why that looks like there's more spending than planned. But that was both funded and allowed, so and needed to be spent. If we do not spend the funds in that category for which they are designated within a certain range, the state will take it back. So, okay, so we'll go to the next slide. This is just the words to describe what is in each of those programs that you saw on the previous screen. And so I think you can look at it in your board plate, but also on the screen, and then we'll advance to the next one. So this is the next category, expenditures by activity. This is the same picture that we were just looking at. It's just sliced only by this category. So it's very much condensed. This is probably the category of coding that is least utilized as far as driving decision-making, but it is an additional layer that they require us to code by. So teaching and support is by far the biggest category. School administration is principals and anybody employed in the principal's office and all their supplies and copier lease and everything like that. Central administration is the supervisory functions for certain departments. It includes human resources, it includes financial services, it includes the supervision part of that. And then other support activities is everything else. And it's a big category, but it's a district-wide service model. And the next slide actually explains that more. But first I'll talk about why we're showing greater amounts in the teaching and support, that we've spent more there than we had planned. The K3 ratio compliance came in with the enrollment. We needed to hire additional teachers to maintain the ratios that we were needing to maintain. And we did that near the beginning of the year, but also, it also represents the fact that we needed to hire additional special education teachers and classified staff. So. Next slide. And there's the description of what each of those categories describes or includes. So you're free to read that at your leisure in another time. And now, next slide. General fund expenditures by object summary. This is another simplified way of looking at it. Same number total, just cut up a little bit differently how we have to code it. And it's by certificated salaries, classified salaries, employee benefits, just payroll taxes and retirement and all of the things that we have to pay for on top of a salary. Supplies and materials, purchase services, which is like subscriptions and software, intangible, maybe a personal service contract. It's something we can't touch. And then travel, very small category, and capital outlay. And capital outlay category also includes entries that we had to make for GASB lease accounting.
So Gina, why does it say travel? It was budgeted 49,000 and the actual was 88,000. That seems pretty big.
Yeah, I don't have the exact figures, and it can depend on how a grant is planned to be spent, and they may not know that they're gonna be spending the grant on travel or professional development. So most of the travel is gonna be mileage and professional development related costs for teachers and the like. So next. This is an expenditure chart by location. So we have 3 years of history here. And we are trying very hard to code everything just exactly to the location where we can. There are a lot of things that cannot be necessarily coded exactly to the building at the get-go. It's an arbitrary calculation at best on some things. So those dollars get coded as non-instructional location type things. This was a new requirement that went into effect within the past 5 years, I would say. I can't remember exactly when, but we did not used to code things by the location like this. And now we do. So that was another addition to how we code things. And I don't really have anything to comment on about this. So I guess I'll go to the next slide. And then this is the sub-fund. This is the last new accounting requirement in how we are required to code the expenditures. And that is differentiating between state and other funding and levy and other funding. So we had started the year with our fund balance of 3.8 million. Out of that, you get 900,000 was considered state and other funding, and 2.9 was considered the sub-fund. And we have our revenues and expenditures that came in for the year, and we end with 1.2 million. And then you can see the breakout of that 1.2 million of fund balance. What part is considered it's left over in there that was from levy and other funds, or what was left over in there that was state funds. So we have to keep that differentiated. But the main thing is we had $15.6 million worth of expenditures that were considered levy and other funds. So there's on the next slide, a list of what we spend our levy and other funds on. And it's quite a list. So I'll let you study that. The things that are the biggest are, for the most part, at the top. But the levy and other funds are very important to various of our programs. It's not just one program. It is spread out across all many areas. Even our transportation program benefits from levy funding. It says, for example, that transportation. That outside agencies, vans and bus repairs, that it paid for $262,000 of that. Now, that's not all we spent on van repairs. Or vans, bus repairs and outside agencies. But that's the part that was coded to the subfund, and that mostly aligns also with. How much short we were in the state funding for transportation program. So as an example, and same with the Child and Nutrition Services Meal Program. There's some there support from, but. So. Any questions on this? Because I think that's the last slide before we start talking about the other funds. Okay, and certainly always welcome to, come with questions to Chris if you have further thoughts. So then we'll talk about, next slide is the next funds. ASB is the first one on the list. It's our favorite one. So the next slide is just some nice happy pictures, colorful, Associated Student Body. And this fund is governed by students. And the costs and expenditures that come through there are to be of a cultural, athletic, recreational, or social nature. And so we call that CARS, the acronym, sometimes when we're asking ourselves, is this appropriate, allowable, or legal for Associated Student Body to spend its funds on? We ask ourselves, is it a cultural nature? Is it an athletic nature, recreational, or social nature? That's a good acronym to have, I think. Next slide is, here's what it looks like for us in Arlington. Our ASB fund is about getting up to almost $1 million of a fund balance. And there are about 884,000 in revenues collected and 770,000 in expenditures. So that just gives you an idea of the nature and size of the student body funds in our district. And it supports student activities and athletics. But that's not the only thing that supports student activities and athletics, because our general fund also provides and contributes for activities and athletics. And that is not in this fund. That's a separate in the general fund. But then we also have all the parent groups and all the things that make the world go round all together to make these programs happen. And so that's all I have to say about ASB today. Next slide. Debt service. Next slide. And here's where we're at with debt service. We're pretty much maintaining a fund balance in there as what it is. And then the expenditures and transfers in fund the expenditures, which is basically the leftover debt that was for purchasing buses. And the debt that was issued to front fund some of the capital projects that we had as part of our capital levy. And I believe we're getting close to having those all paid off this year. If that's not the last one, then it's this coming year. I can't remember, sorry, but it's coming down to the end of it. And after those are done, then we would not have any more debt in there unless we issued a bond, which we have to have voter approval. Okay, next slide. We'll talk about construction. So next slide is the capital projects fund. This is showing the context of where we're at with our capital projects and what we spent this last year. And it shows the transfers out that we had to make out of that fund into the debt service fund, as they're paying back the money that was borrowed to front fund those capital projects. Next slide, we'll talk about the $5 million in expenditures. What were the highlights of the major projects that happened during 23 and 24? And a lot of these projects seem to span multiple years. But so we're still finishing up on some of the things that have been on this list for a while. But the main thing, one of the main, is Pioneer roof building and envelope improvements and the boiler, finishing up that. And then Eagle Creek portables, HVAC, kitchen floor, Kent Prairie site access improvements, student drop off. And then the Still Squamish Learning Center had roof and floor. just district network improvements, also district-wide. And the last construction details that were part of the 2024 capital levy, and that was huge with the district-wide safety and security improvements and HVAC improvements at multiple school buildings. Okay, next slide. Buses. Our transportation vehicle fund is next, and we bought 3 buses in 23-24 fiscal year. We had more on order, but they are slow to come by. You can order them well in advance and they will take a long time, a long time. But we did receive 3 out of the 4 that we ordered in 23-24, and then the 4th one came towards the beginning of this year. So, and then you see the transfer out, and that was to the debt service fund to pay the debt that we issued to borrow so that we could buy a number of our fleet. And now we're paying that back. Okay, so that is the end of, I think that's my last slide, other than the questions. Oh, no, it's not, sorry. Just the what's next, because it never ends. We close out the books, and now the Washington State Auditor's Office will perform their annual audit of our financial statements and issue an opinion on the fair presentation of those financial statements, including our internal controls and legal compliance. And then they'll also provide a separate opinion on our federal grant programs. They will not start with us until February or March of the next year, because we're still working on some of the note disclosure and things that we prepare that get published with the audit report. And now that is the last slide. Are there any questions today?
I don't hear a lot of questions, but I just want to say thank you.
Thank you.
A million thank yous for keeping it all straight and helping explain it to all of us all the time, and for your professionalism and integrity. We appreciate you.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next up is our Alternative Learning Experience, ALE, Courses Annual Report. I'd like to welcome Carrie Marsh, our principal at SBLC. Good evening.
Thank you. I am Carrie Marsh, principal at the Stillaguamish Valley Learning Center. And I'm here to talk about ALE, which we house all 3 ALE programs at SBLC. Today, I'm going to talk to you about ALE student FTE and headcount, the ratio of certificated staff to student FTE, and how our ALE courses support the district goals. OSPI offers 3 different ALE programs at Arlington Public Schools. We offer all 3 of those here, and they're all under the SBLC umbrella. We have a site-based program. The definition of a site-based program is 20% or more of in-person instructional contact is with a certificated teacher. It's important to know that all ALEs operate different. So these are our parameters. And then we get to look at these rules and design a program that works for Arlington. So currently our site-based program has kids coming to SBLC site Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and working at home Monday, Friday. A remote program is if less than 20% of the time is with us on campus. Remote program will feel mostly like a traditional homeschool program, with the exception that they're connected to us here in Arlington. And we're going to provide curriculum, and we're going to be in contact with parents and offer support. And then online means that 50% or more of the course content is delivered remotely and electronically. So that's our Arlington online program. This is a chart of FTE and headcount. This is a simple view of it. I started back at October 2018, and then the newest one is on the right here. You'll see that we've gone up quite a bit. Our FTE at the end of October was 273, and our headcount is 252. How we get to those numbers is a little bit complicated. That's the next few slides, particularly the FTE and headcount portion. So the ratio of certificated staff to student FTE in our site-based program, currently we don't have any remote students. Our site-based program, we have 7.1 teacher FTE for 179 students. So we serve 179 students in the on-site program. So that ratio is 1:25, one certificated teacher to 25 students. In the online program, we call it AOP, we have 2.4 teacher FTE for 123 student FTE. That's not 123 students, that's the FTE. And so that balances out to about one certificated employee to 51 students. It's important to note in the online program that over 0.6 FTE of the teacher FTE are teachers only correcting. So they're not interacting with students with the exception of like any interaction they might have on an assignment. They're not meeting with students or managing their learning plan. So to kind of give a clear picture of our numbers, these are numbers of learning plans. So every ALE student has to have a written student learning plan. We call it a WSLP, lots of letters in our business. A written student learning plan has a series of requirements. When the course is starting, when it's ending, we have to document weekly that we see these students. So some of them are not on campus all the time, so it's our obligation to record that we're seeing and in contact with them. That contact is defined as bi-directional, and it has to be academic in nature, meaning I couldn't run into Troy at the grocery store and talk about the price of lettuce. That's not an academic contact. We have to have a conversation about their academic and their learning plan. There's also a requirement that we document progress monthly and communicate it. So we do what would be like your quarterly conferences in a traditional system. We do them every month. So our kindergarten teacher is in charge of managing 20 WSLPs. So reported FTE is 273 for October. Head count was 252. Number of learning plans is 264 learning plans that our teachers are managing. Talking about Arlington Online Program, that's sort of the messiest, if you will, of our programs in terms of numbers. So again, FTE 273, head count 252, learning plans 264. But you'll see we're servicing in Arlington 201 students, so that's a student total. 201 students in the Arlington School District are accessing Arlington Online Program. At Weston and Arlington High School, there's a little caveat where they're not ALE. So for example, if there's a student that's attending Arlington High School for 5 periods, and their 6th period, they're taking an AOP class and they access the lab, they are not ALE. They are a traditional student. We get to get traditional apportionment for them. If there's a student taking 5 credit or 5 classes at AHS, and they've decided they want to come to campus late, maybe sleep in and take 1 AOP class, but they're taking it on their own, that student's an ALE student. So when we show the numbers, the SVLC students are students that are ALE and uniquely our entity. And then we've got 40 kids at Weston and 68 at Arlington High School that are accessing Arlington Online Program, but not ALE. Last year, November 1st, that total was 156. So we're about 50 more, we're serving about 50 more students this year. In our AOP program for the high school classes, we use Apex. For our 6-8 program, we use a program called Accelerate Education. Those are district approved curriculum. In Arlington School District, as of the end of October, we had 398 Apex enrollments. So 398 courses being taken through Apex. Last year at this time, it was 290. And as of the end of October, the number of completed courses is 66, which is pretty amazing that on those transcripts that we're watching and monitoring, especially our seniors, we've got 66 spots filled with APEX courses.
And Carrie, do you know what the percentage of success is on that? So if there's that many enrollments, do you find with Apex, is it like 90%?
That's a great question. I don't have that number. If I go back a little bit to this slide, you'll see that we have kids come and go.
Yeah.
So if you just look at the numbers from end of September to end of October,
Yeah.
those are kids at AHS saying, I can't do this class, I'm gonna need to do it online.
Okay.
We have some kids who are online where we say, this isn't working. You're having a hard time getting work turned in, and we're pushing them back to the traditional system, so it goes back and forth. But that's a great question. I'd like to track those numbers.
Yeah, I mean, that to me would just, the efficacy, like, is this good? Is this working for our students? I think my kids did some online learning and they passed the courses. I would think it's a pretty high number, but it'd be interesting to contrast.
Yeah.
Yeah, like what you were starting in a traditional setting and then going into AOP.
Yeah, and a lot of kids are using this for credit retrieval, so they didn't pass a course for whatever reason, and it doesn't necessarily, I mean, there's so many reasons, right?
Yeah.
And I guess I would say, for those that it works for, it's 100% worth it, right? If we have kids who need access to these courses and are doing it, that's awesome.
That's great to see the enrollment of though. That's cool.
Yeah. So talking about how these courses support our district goals, student learning and achievement is the first goal. Our programs use district approved curriculum. So in our on-site program, we're using all the same curriculum that our middle schools and elementary schools in Arlington are using. We're doing it differently, obviously, because we're sending some home to work with parents. This year on campus, we added a second grade class. So we now have kinder, first and second in single grade classes. We also have a third, fourth, and a 4-5. We are going to need to find space for one more class because we have a pretty big group in 4 and 5 that we want to keep, right? We're proud of the fact that we now have all students in the on-site program attending campus classes 3 days a week. So we have enough teachers now so that every group can have 3 days. Before we were splitting 2 and 2 for a couple of the younger groups. Our teachers use universal design for learning and to provide rich tasks and meaningful learning. We serve all students' needs. So we have opportunities for students to catch up. We have opportunities to advance. We can meet kids where they're at. It's part of the fun is to get to know them and figure out what they need and how we can help. And my favorite is we offer choice to families in Arlington. When we talk about everybody belonging in Arlington Public Schools, there is a place to learn here in the public schools. And if it's not AHS or Weston, we can offer some support. Safe and caring environment. Every student has a learning consultant. So every student's connected with an adult that's there to, a certificated teacher that's there to help them through their learning. They may not be teaching, so our Arlington Online Program teachers aren't necessarily teaching math, but they're there to support it. And they're natural teachers, so there's rarely a question that we don't try to figure out, but we're not designing those lessons. But everybody's connected to somebody that cares about them and is helping them and their families through this process. Number 1 says we provide a quiet supervised learning space. Mostly that's for Arlington Online Program. We do have a lab they can come in and work in. No guarantees that the on-site classes are all quiet, but they are supportive and doing great work. We're proud of the fact that our students have diverse backgrounds and family values. People come to us for a lot of different reasons, and we're happy to have a place where everybody belongs. For many AOP students, the ability to complete courses remotely means they're able to meet the demands of life. So we have some kids who have some medical issues and can't come to campus. Some of them are working to support them or their families. We have a lot of different reasons, so they have an option still with us. Resource stewardship is our third district goal. we work really hard and we're very intentional at hiring staff that have a mindset of alternative learning. It's different than traditional. And the people we have with us are really passionate about finding another way to make sure that every kid has what they need. We're adding our Apex licenses as needed, rather than buying a big batch of licenses and using what we can. So we're only using what we need. This year, we made the decision in early September to not purchase K-5 AOP licenses. We don't have a lot of students in the K-5 program. We have a great on-site program that we'd rather them access, or we can help with remote. And for the K-5 licenses, we needed to buy in a bulk so we decided to not do that this year. And our on-site program has brought some Arlington homeschool families back into Arlington Public Schools, which is amazing. We just had a family of 5 kids enroll last week and they're doing awesome. And AOP allows Arlington School District to capture and retain FTE because of the flexibility of the program. So we also are taking a lot of Marysville kids. Their online program has closed. We do have a 10% cap for choice transfer, and we are at that 10%. And for as long as I can remember, the last 2 or 3 years, we've been at the cap. So we have a wait list for that. Parent community partnerships that's an easy one. Our parents are part of the educational process. We remind them that they are the primary educators and we're here to support them. And they have access to everything we have: Google Classroom, teacher created websites. Our teachers make great videos to help support parents in their teaching for the home learning. Our parents have regular reoccurring meetings every month where we talk, those student-led meetings where students talk about their goals and their successes. And we create quite a team to support our kids. We also have strong partnerships with our neighboring districts. We have a wait list for our out-of-district students. And we have a great parent club who's working with us to design some special enrichment options. They got us a Gaga ball pit last year, which was pretty amazing. We break all the time. We're the only middle school and high school in Arlington with a Gaga ball pit. And we have a basketball court coming. So be impressed.
We still do gingerbread Christmas or whatever the holiday.
No, but that'd be great.
Yeah, I remember that was super fun. Yeah,
Oh,
good
that'd be great.
memories.
Some celebrations for us. Our Monday enrichment courses. So last year we started Monday enrichment courses. One of the kind of highs and lows of SVLC is we change all the time. And so we started something new last year with Monday enrichment. We've changed it a little bit this year where our elementary is working on a musical. We're gonna do Wizard of Oz. Our middle school has a couple of win periods, so some spaces for kids that are struggling with home learning to come in and work with teachers. And we also have a film class that's pretty awesome. We're putting them to work in a couple different ways this year. We have a great student leadership group. We are empowering students and they're accepting the role really well. They run our assemblies, they do our announcements. We're getting ready to do a winter activity that they're going to run. They're organizing a food drive, a door decorating contest. They come up with really great ideas and our parent club funds them. And our programs are growing. We added another elementary classroom this year, so we have one more elementary teacher and we opened another elementary classroom. We still have a wait list in all classes, but 1st and 6th grade, we have room for 1 more in 1st. And we have room for about 5 more in 6th grade. Otherwise, we have a pretty significant wait list for other grades. Our AOP kids are coming to campus regularly to access teacher support and a school learning environment. We have more kids coming on campus this year than ever before for AOP. We're in our 3rd year of LAP for elementary, which is pretty exciting. We're working on our reading scores in the elementary. We have student support advocate on campus. Speech and OT coming on campus regularly. Miss Cat was here and got something from the Arlington Education Foundation, so that's awesome. They're also serving Apple students out of our office. They're one of us. And we have a mental health counselor on campus one morning a week, which is great. Next steps, we always need more people. We are growing quickly. Counselor, paraeducators, and more teachers. We need a custodian while kids are on campus. We have one after they leave, but we have more kids, and so the need is there. We would down the road like an academic counselor to support our high school transcripts. Right now, we're relying on the counselors at AHS and the counselors at Weston, who are awesome, but we'd like somebody to ensure that we're taking care of our SBLC kids in an equitable way. Our AOP numbers are growing, and our caseload for those teachers is at the highest level it's ever been. And we're gonna need another teacher next year for our elementary. I mean, we're also out of space. We're creative. We've got ideas, but we have building facility needs that I believe are on the docket for getting met through the last levy, so we're thankful for that. I have a second grader who's designing me a gym. We'll see where that goes, but yay. And we're also applying for a multi-district license through OSPI so that it's a little bit of a rigorous process. If we get approved, then that 10% cap goes away and we can serve kids throughout the state of Washington. Which I think more we're concerned about serving kids in our area that could use us, but we'd like to take away that 10% cap. It's hard to tell a family that we don't have room for them. Questions?
About the 10% cap, so if you get approved for that, is there no cap? Or
No
is
cap.
it replaced with another cap?
I mean, there will be a cap of like teacher limitations,
Right,
right?
right.
Staff limitations will have to have a cap somewhere,
Right,
but there's no cap.
okay.
To go along with Eric, is there gonna be a percentage from each district, the multi-district, that you would have to take in, or will it be as many as Arlington and then add in more?
It would be, we could take any kid with a choice transfer without having to crunch the numbers each time. So there's one of the districts in Eastern Washington, Pasco, got approved last year. Not very many people get approved. Pasco got approved, Tacoma got approved the year before, and they can take anybody throughout Washington. So there are a handful of districts who have online programs that we send kids to. So we'll say, we don't have room, but here's one where they meet you on Zoom. Here's one where you work and connect online. And so we try to connect as much as we can. And as I talk to ALE people around us, I say, like, let's not be the same. Let's do something different so that if I have a kid who really needs teacher FaceTime on Zoom, we can send them to you. And if you have a kid who can't do Zoom because of whatever reason, send them to us. So really, we have a list of requirements that are pretty firm that we have to stay within, but other than that, we can be creative about how we serve students.
Are there financial benefits to losing that cap for the district and for SBLC?
For sure, right? Then our enrollment is, we would be able
That's
to
what I was
bring in more
looking, so
kids, yeah.
FTE, do your FTE go, okay.
Yep. So with those type of enrollments, generally that's a full FTE that comes our way. At the beginning, you'll notice that like our head count and our FTE numbers are never the same. And usually FTE is higher than head count. That's because a fair amount of our kids at Arlington High School, we just get for one class. So that's a 0.17. So all of those add up to less than like one full student. Does that make sense? But we want to bring in full students from out of district. And I don't think we have anybody who comes in a partial enrollment from out of district. Not in our program anyway. Great
Yeah,
question.
Carrie, I'd just be curious about the trends. I'm thinking about people who are coming into this program, like you said, a family of 5. So if we know the birth rate is, if that's declining, so we're not necessarily as a bricks and mortar school district expecting new families in. But what I am wondering is if there's a choice to homeschool versus, bricks and mortar, and then this is our option. Like, to me, I would like to be a school district where we can capture any way you want to educate your child, we can do it.
Yep.
If you want AOP, you want bricks and mortar, you want part-time and remote, like I really think that that's where we're at. I don't want to be at the effect of, or I want to be less encumbered by the lower birth rate,
Mhm.
but still feel like we can be a sustaining school district.
Right, and that's really being diverse and equitable and meeting. Some
Responsive.
parents want to do a lot more of the teaching and want to have more influence in that, and that works well in our remote or on-site program. And to be clear, the remote or the on-site program and the remote program doesn't have a cap.
Right.
So we have a running joke that you can find people in Arlington who have no idea who we are, but we are famous in Marysville.
Interesting,
Yes,
yeah.
they know us well. Yep.
Any more questions?
Hey, thanks for your time.
Thank you. Very informative. We appreciate all the work you do to reach all of our.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Next up is our special education admin update. Does anybody need a fire break?
Good evening.
I just want to quickly just pause for just a second. Would anybody be opposed to taking a 5-minute recess?
No.
No.
I know you're so excited, but sometimes I know we have a lot of questions about this subject and that this might go a little bit long and I don't want to interrupt you in the middle of your,
Okay.
would anybody be
Okay.
opposed to 5-minute recess? Okay, so 7:30, we'll be back at 7:35. So you can be all ready. Thank you. Yes, might as well go. It was.
Stand up. Yes.
All right, well, we're gonna call the meeting back to order. Thank you for your patience. Next up, is our special education annual update. We'd like to welcome Dave McKellar and Brenda Booth. Thank you for being here. Go ahead.
All right. Okay, so for tonight, this is kind of an overview of what we're gonna go over. We'll recap, last year we had shared, but we'll recap our core values for special education services, as well as the statutory language that guides our work. Students with disabilities, where they're served in our district, our specialized programs, and our special education funding. Let's see if I can get this. Wrong one. Wrong one. Okay, there we go. All right, so here is a statement of our core value. I will give you a second to read that. Kind of summarize and highlight, a major part of our core value is that students are educated as close to the general education classroom as possible. There's been a lot of work across the district with universal UDL, Universal Design for Learning, inclusionary practices, all of that. And it's the work we do every day with our staff in considering this. Some of the guidance from IDEA and RCWs and WACs is to the maximum extent appropriate. Educate children who are not just, they're educated with children who are not disabled. Removal only when occurs when necessary. And we do a lot of conversations and a lot of data around this to make those decisions. It's a lot of interventions are being tried, data tracking the interventions, seeing that they're appropriate, and really taking a lot of time through the process to make decisions if we are going to remove students. And then when the students are in our specialized program, looking for opportunities for them to be back out into the general education population. Here are our overall numbers in special education over the kind of across the years. As you can see this year, every year we start higher. We always drop. At the start of the year, we're always lower than what we ended, but then we always end up higher than we started. So this year, especially, we started with 905 students, and already by November 1st, we're at 976. And there's a lot of transfers in this year. We've had a lot of students transferring into our district, choice transfers, as well as students just moving into Arlington. All right, so our services, we always look for a continuum of services. So you'll see our students with disabilities served in the resource room, speech and language only, occupational therapy, physical therapy, as well as our special programs. And in our specialized programs, as I said earlier, our really goal is to always maximize the educational benefit in the general education. So we're looking at what times in the day would each individual student be most successful in with their gen ed peers. Sometimes it's during specialists, sometimes it's starting just recess and lunch. Other times they might need a more quiet time in the classroom where it's not as stimulating, and that would be the opportunity we look for that. We also look at having peers come into our specialized program. Howler Middle School is a great example in the life skills program. They have peer tutors who come into life skills and spend like a period with our students, or they'll even go with some of our students as peer tutors into their gen ed classrooms. And then within our specialized programs, so these are the different ones we have. Our structured learning environment, which is this year we have 2 classrooms at President's, 2 classrooms at Kent Prairie, a classroom at Post Middle School and at Arlington High School. Our life skills programs, our behavior programs, transitions at Weston, serving our 18 to 22-year-olds now that the legislation switched it through till their 22nd birthday. And then our development in high school, which we have higher numbers than we've had there as well. A little facts within our special education students, 29% are served in a specialized program. And with our one-on-ones overall, we have 3.5% of our students with special needs have a one-on-one. Yes.
And Brenda, we don't have transition, that's different. We don't have a transitional kindergarten, a TK.
We do not at this time, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What would that be something we would want to do? Like, what would we need to see to offer that?
I think it's definitely something like I've been a part of grant with the early childhood grant where some of that work has been done. Looking at inclusionary preschool as well as TK, kind of looking at what those, what are the requirements, what are the factors? Looking at, we need to have conversations at our district level about that
Okay.
at this point, yeah.
And is a transitional kindergarten student kind of like a special ed, or is it just where the birthday falls, a maturity, like?
Yeah, so transitional kindergarten is really more so it's where you capture 4-year-olds who are gonna be going into kindergarten.
Okay.
Who might not be in an early learning program in our community.
Gotcha.
Just trying to kind of get more of a grasp.
Get them more ready?
Yeah, but some districts, the way they're modeling it is we might roll some of their developmental preschool students who are also gonna be going into kindergarten into that class for an inclusionary.
Okay, so like a marriage of
Yeah.
the two types, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I just, yeah.
Yeah,
just hear
that's
word,
kind of the
but-
trends that you're seeing around the state right now.
Yeah, okay.
So Gina gave us kind of an overview of our numbers. This is also part of our special programming, has to do with MPAs. These are non-public agencies, and so we have students. You'll see we have 2 students right now currently at the Northwest Regional Learning Center. These are the portables that are on the Weston campus site. And so this is a program that's operated through the ESD 189. It's an all behavior program, and 2 programs exist there. Discovery, which is like K8. It's more self-contained. And then NRLC, Northwest Regional Learning Center, is more 912-esque and not as much self-contained. If students want to decide to walk out that day, they don't stop that from happening. It doesn't happen often, but anyway, kind of a distinction there. And of course, curriculum credits and things like that are different in NRLC. Overlake Specialty School in Redmond, we have 1 student there. Brightmont Academy, Seattle, 1. Northwest School for the Deaf of Hard of Hearing, 1. Edmonds Woodway School District, they have an ASL program, really robust. We've had students there over the years. In fact, we had one last year who said, I want to be an Eagle and come home.
Oh.
And so I panicked because he's in an ASL program.
Oh.
They can't even staff their own programs with ASL interpreters. And we went through a lot of meetings last year, and he's actually thriving up at the high school right now without the support of an ASL interpreter. He ignored them when he had them because he didn't want to stand out. So anyway, we have another Eagle back. And Daybreak Canyon in Kellogg, Idaho, that 1 student of out-of-state placement. You'll see at the bottom right now, our numbers are represented. We may see a couple more students enter MPAs throughout the year. We're kind of in talks and planning for placement, but right now, 814,000 is on the books is what we anticipate spending. All of these are safety net eligible programs. So after the capacity, the limit that we have to spend, everything above that can be reclaimed through the safety net grant. And I just want to point out that's 480,000 less than last year than we had. So you heard Gina talk about, 1.4 million. I don't want to stand here and brag. I don't want to say that we're pumping fist in the air, but that's actually, we're typically in the 2 million to just over 2 million annually that we're taking general education dollars into our program to supplement it. So we're making cuts, we've made reductions this year. We're really looking hard. Chris calls it dividing up the olive, cutting the olive up. I've heard her say. We're really trying to figure out how do we disperse evenly and help our students at the same time, keeping the rigor and the challenges in the same light. So for our projected revenue, we're looking at 14.9. It is a $652,000 increase over last year. A lot of that just has to do with, there was the cap raise again. We are at 16.5% overall, so we're right there with what the state's doing. I'm gonna tell you, it's still not gonna be enough to get us through the year without going into basic ed dollars somewhat, but we're a lot more positive and hopeful. So those are, again, state and federal dollars coming in. We set a budgetary amount that money starts off with at the beginning of the year of 966. And one of the slides Brenda had already in November 1, we're 10 students above that already. That was our budgeted, just be conservative throughout the year. And we've already bypassed that. So the state will fund us on the 966 between now and to the end of December. Come January, they go towards actuals. So they'll make up the difference once we hit January. And so we'll see a bump in revenue for those students as well. And you're just going to see in a minute, but Safety Net and Medicaid combined last year, $1.3 million received back through Safety Net and through Medicaid reimbursement. Our biggest three expenditures for the year, you'll see right there classified and cert salary and benefits, 14.17. Compare that to the top number of our revenue that we'll see through apportionment. We're barely skimming the top, right? Contracted services, you saw that number, 470,000. We'll see some increase there slightly. And keep in mind that when we have a non-public agency and we're paying out to those agencies, that money comes out of our pocket throughout the year, and Safety Net's a one-time. In May, we submit for reimbursement. And so we won't see the return of that till June, or at least the award in June. We see the money. Gina, does it come in August? Safety Net?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Most of it, some of it comes in September and October.
Yeah, so we don't get it all back right away, but we do get it back. And then MPAs, or I'm sorry, contracted services, those are, the 470 is the people we have to hire, agencies out that we don't have staff for. Might be a registered behavior technician or an SLP or an OT. That's for our contracted services. And then underneath that is our non-public agencies. So there's our amount, August 2024, our final award, it was a little over that, and then they adjust for numbers and things, 1.192, so $1.2 million, 102% greater than we've received the year previous. And of course, you just look through the past years, come a long way, baby, right? I mean, it's just like exciting to see that. And I'll give a lot of credit here to Brenda working through EGMS. It's the new online service that we work through for grants and whatnot. It actually forced us to look differently at numbers throughout the year and how we code IEPs and students. And so we really just tremendous what we were able to accomplish. We were floored. That was just a great number to see back. And then Medicaid, we took a dip last year in terms of, you'd see the years past 200, 216, 210, and then 178. It was just the number of kids who qualify for us to get reimbursement for. So it was just a dip in those numbers. So. Did I just go backwards?
Yeah.
Thank you. And, okay, any questions about budget? Any questions about revenue? Any questions about expenditures?
Regarding the dip in the Medicaid, was that because families no longer qualify? I know there was a difference in, like, suddenly they had to pay a lot more, a lot of families did, so is it because of that reason?
Yeah, every child that was eligible, we were able to capture that and submit all of that, so there's just less families qualified.
Okay.
Every month we submit names and they rerun all of our students, so each month it will change who is qualifying.
Yeah, that makes sense too. Thank you.
And this is just our last slide. We have two new updates for the month of November. We have the Arlington Special Education Committee. This is comprised of staff members on site. This was something that came out of bargaining this past summer. And so we actually had our first meeting. We're meeting 5 times over early release Fridays, but we're actually capturing 2 more hours of that day. So from 12 to 3, we're meeting as a district team. Throughout bargaining, there was an MOU created. They had a list of things that they wanted to address. And the planning committee, which is Brenda and I, and then Mike Shirk at Heller and Kristen Beth, thank you, at Eagle Creek. And so the 4 of us have been planning. Kristen is the vice president of the union. And so we have been, we spent 2 sessions just pre-planning, and we realized quickly that there's no possible way we could get to all that list today. And as they were listening to their members, inclusionary practices just rose to the top in terms of their concern. They're wanting to know more about what does it look like, and how do we move forward with that? So we settled in the committee to just focus on that one issue. So we had our first meeting on Friday. We had from 12 to 3, AEA bought lunch, case karaoke, was great. But we worked through a working lunch and actually started surfacing our understanding about inclusionary practices. What are the laws, IDEA? You saw some of our mandates to the maximum extent possible. These are non-negotiables. These are things that we have to adhere to legally, morally, and ethically, right? And so we just started breaking this down. Interestingly enough, the team per the MOU is mostly comprised of special education staff. And yet the staff really, that group of people realized right away that we don't necessarily have all the right people at the table here, because inclusionary practices is mostly a general education need, right? Or in terms of just, because we're talking about moving students away, back out of a resource, pull out, get them down the hall, back into the general environment. And so it's creating some angst. This is something Washington State and others are dealing with, but we're starting to grapple with that. So we have the 5 collaborative Fridays, they call them, for collaboration work that happens between buildings and AEA members. And so we're using those. So we have 15 hours basically of time that we're going to be using. And then at the end, we're going to come up with some recommendations and next steps, and we'll pick it up again next year. Special Education Advisory Committee, SEAC. Our first meeting is next Tuesday, and I think Matt is going to be there, and Dr. Sweeting is planning on being there. And so we have pushed out, we've created a charter. Our goal is to have a balance. This is something that we're just trying to, right now we have 29 applicants. It's about a 60-40, 60% community members, 40% staff members. I put out another appeal, and we had about 3 more staff members say they wanted to be a part of it, just hadn't got around to filling out the application yet. So we're excited to do that. That again starts next Tuesday, and then we meet quarterly, and I don't have those dates for you, but I can find those if you need those. Yeah, so we're getting some things going in the month of November. Yes.
Question, so you do your best to budget on the students who have IEPs that need special education services. What is the cost? Is there like a general figure you can give me when you bring someone in who is new to the program or out of district, who's maybe moved here that you weren't planning on? What is a budget number that you would put in to say, okay, we're having this student? I mean, again, I'm thinking of an elementary student might be different than what a high school student might need, or if somebody has repetitive services.
Actually, the special education funding, so they're basic ed students, they're general ed
Gen ed
students,
students, right? Receiving services.
receiving services. So it comes down to 2 factors. It's one concept is least restrictive environment.
Right.
So there's a formula. If they're in LRE 1, which is 80% of their day or greater in a gen ed environment, then they're in least restrictive environment 1. It's the goal to have the most students we can get there with their typically developing peers. LRA 2, there's a different factor. So it's actually, and so those are kids who fall into our programs or might not be out into the general ed population as much. And the actual factoring number for LRA 1 is greater than it is for the lower. And the first time I heard it, I thought, well, this is backwards, because it's like our programs are really intense. We have some kids who really need these supports. But whether it's never been stated that I'm aware of, but that factoring was to get, I think the more support is happening for those kids in LRA 1 who are in the gen ed environment, the state, however they came up with their rationale for that. So it makes sense. We have students out in the general ed population who may need more supports, and there's more of them. So that's the factoring that goes with that. There's no other, whether they're in 12th grade or whether they're in
So it's
first
just
grade.
the percentage of time that they're in like a gen ed room
Correct.
versus getting pulled for resources.
Correct.
I just think of one-on-one sometime, and I'm thinking, that's expensive, and I would like to think that the student gets what they need. And I would like to also think that the district is not looking like, we always have to look at budget. But as the other end where I'm at from a faculty standpoint, I'm
Yeah.
like, this person might benefit with a one-on-one.
Yeah.
Right, but I don't know what a budgetary, so I don't know, I was curious if you, what your input is on that. Is it really, are we genuinely looking at what's best for the kiddo?
Yeah, I think we're really, Brenda and I spent the last 2 years really looking at the idea and the concept of a one-on-one. I don't know if you want to add anything.
Yeah.
To what we've been talking about, so.
No, you can see others. Yeah, so I think it is kind of a rub, like thinking of budget, like.
Yeah.
And also, we don't want to just attach a one-on-one to all students, because that's not always the least restrictive, sometimes that's more restrictive.
Mhm.
So that there's a lot of conversation in that. And what we've been having teams really do is really try and break down and look data, like base decisions, like is it all times in the day that support is needed? Is it just portions
Right,
of
so
the
you've done them
day?
TSS,
Like,
you've done those, yeah.
Really looking at that. And then we do know that after we meet any student that does have the one-on-one, we're really conscious of how that's written into the IEP, because then after you meet capacity on the expenses, then it can roll over to safety net. But a lot more on the discussion of what is best to support the student and where is the best space for that support.
Mhm.
Also, what we're really working with teams right now, starting to roll out is how, when you do have a one-on-one, what is the plan for increasing independence of that student so that
Right, a gradual release from that, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's kind of all the work that we're doing right now around.
It sounds very complex what you do. I appreciate it. I'm only at the effective, like, I need, I mean, selfishly, I see those experiences. But it sounds, you have to really finesse it, and I had no idea it was quite complex. But it seems
Yeah.
like a lot of things in educational funding are complex.
Yeah.
The distance, it's something we want to break the habit of safety net. I think
Mhm.
my theory is, and many people might subscribe to this, is that if our state was fully funding special education, we wouldn't need safety net. We would have the resources to cover the needs that we have identified in our system.
Right.
So if we have, a number that we budget around is a paraeducator for benefits and salary is about $60,000.
Yeah.
And so when we talk with teams and they say, well, we'd like a one-on-one, we say, you understand, we just want you to be upfront. That
Mhm.
it's first, that's a $60,000 ask. And we had close to $800,000 ask on the board when we started this school year, with different people saying, we need a one-on-one, we need this.
Right.
Some were going into programs, some came to us with IEPs with one-on-one, so it's a legal contract.
Yeah.
And so we made a choice we call them floaters, we got someone let's see if we can transition them in. A district, a much smaller district, say, east of us, may not have the programs that we have, so they rely on one-on-ones to help manage the student, to help, do the things that they need to do, whereas we have a program that they may find the structures and the support that they don't need that kind of support because the program itself provides it.
And usually there's a mechanism that when you have a new student, you have 30 days to evaluate. So if you put a floater in and evaluate, is that need really there?
Mhm.
And then you work with the family, work with the IP team about talking about what does that really look like in our district.
Yeah.
And money doesn't, it's the need first, right?
Right.
And so that's not the driving factor. It is a factor.
But it's a consideration for sure, yeah.
And so when we talk about capacity, and so last year it was just over $38,000 for safety net. That meant anything above that we could claim towards safety net. So maybe $12,000 or $11,000. If we have one para supporting 2 students in a building, it's not going to make capacity because we have that person is divided between 2 people.
So with that point that Dave just made, so when we say fully fund special education, it's not just the percentage or the number of students that they're paying that additional funding for. It's so to meet capacity, that's $38,000, which there's a gap there because we received just for basic ed, maybe 10,000. So there's 18,000, $20,000 that the district would cover for that gap. So what we're asking in our ask to the legislator is fully fund, not just increase the percentage or not have a percentage, but also take care of all those gaps.
Yeah.
The capacity for all of our one-on-one students with a one-on-one and our MPAs, we're at around $500,000. that encompasses just the capacity. So we'll have to spend $500,000. We will not get return on that. Above that, and that's what, and we regenerated or were able to get 1.2 million back this past year. But we spent we spent a lot of money on that capacity that we won't receive back.
Right.
So students get that extra support, get that extra funding. So we want to be really cautious and mindful, right? Make data-driven decisions
Right.
about
Right.
why we're doing this. And then we don't want students to grow up through their whole schooling with a one-on-one. We want to develop independence. That's what we want for all of our students, to independently operate and work in this world. Some just take longer, right? Of course, but so our goal, then we start fading. Well, it's like, well, if we take this person away, okay, take the safety net needle out of your arm, because we're making a conscious decision to say, this is what's best for the student.
Right.
And so it's a hard, but if the state was doing its responsibility fully, we believe for special education, we wouldn't have to make some of these harder decisions about,
Right.
finding support.
Thank you.
Can I make a comment? And then you can have it. Oftentimes I'll have a friend in the community that'll approach me and they're struggling with their child and they don't know what to do next. They don't know if they qualify. They don't know how to ask to see. Do you guys have some kind of reference or guidance for somebody who's struggling with a child? They don't know if they need help or what help is out there, what's available. Do you have any kind of resources for them so that they would know the process? I know it's.
Yeah,
very
I don't know
complex.
that we have a lot of written materials to describe that, but so my first advice would be, of course, talk to the child's teacher.
Yes.
And start at that level, right? And say, I'm just concerned and then say, what more can be done? And they would say, teachers all have in their buildings, at the elementary especially, child study teams, right? So these are people who, these teams gather and look at data that might say, let's do some more MTSS, let's get them LAP or title services. And then we just start incrementally going to that next level. But once you're in the system that way, once you've made connections, the process is pretty good. Now you get to secondary, then it's again, talking to a teacher or talking to admin or talking to, you should be able to get an answer from one of our staff members about what the next step is. If they're not getting those answers, and I get phone calls, I get emails weekly about parents saying, what do I do next? I've even had parents call me from other districts and say, we'd love to be there, but we can't, but can you give me some advice? And without throwing any district under the bus, I say, here are the 5 things you should be thinking about. And these are the questions you could ask. And they can find those questions online, or I find some of them, right? But you should be able to ask legitimately your child's teacher, your principal. These are people that should get you directed and funneled in the right direction. We could, if they wanted to look at our district webpage, I mean, we have programs on there, we have our phone number, we have, so they could navigate that. And we have an obligation too for Child Find. I don't know if you've been to the dollar store, but they had these I don't know if it's still there, but they had plexiglass, the separation.
Yeah.
And there was one of our stickers for Child Find, and it had Dr. Prouty as our Child Find coordinator, just had her number there because we have an obligation to take flyers to doctors. So we have an obligation to find out, to root out students that may be out there that aren't receiving services. And so, those are little things, but my face just lit up when I saw it there and I'm like, oh, that's us. I didn't even know she did that, right? So we're just trying to find ways to let families know about those things. So, yeah, but in terms of a pamphlet or something, I don't know where we put it and I don't know. It could be something that we could do. I'll work with our communications director directly.
Wink, wink. I know a guy.
I know a guy who knows a guy. But yeah, we can think about that. But if you have any suggestions, I'd be more than happy. Matt?
I do. Going back a little bit, so slide 8, the specialized program numbers. The question I had is the behavior program at Eagle Creek is the capacity is at 23 right now. How many of those kids are from the other 3 elementary schools?
That's a great question.
The only reason I ask is because like that's a high number in a behavior
It's two
program.
classrooms, it's 2 classrooms.
Yeah, it's still, it's high, but I'm
Yeah.
just, and then the, what was it, the mission statement of trying to get kids in their neighborhood schools, right? Like how many of them are traveling into, from the other 3 schools into Eagle Creek? Or the same thing with Holler, at Post, how many kids are from Holler, how many kids are from Post?
Yeah.
I'm just, the reason is kind of like spread the wealth, so to speak, like that's a lot of behavior kids in one school. And just kind of like being able to kind of separate that a little bit to give the school, I'm just curious.
Sure.
Yeah, it'd take a minute to break it down exactly, but we could get those numbers to you. That is with 2 classrooms and our 3 to 5 classroom, there's actually quite a few of those students who are back out into gen ed classes being supported. You know, like there's some that are spending the majority of their day, they're just kind of in that transition stage. And then the goal to hopefully get them back to their home schools. I know that we had a few of our 5th graders last year who were ready to transition out into 6th grade and then went to Howler, their homeschool versus Post. So definitely a goal that we should get those.
Shout out to Chris Antolak, our teacher in the 3 to 5, and it's amazing the work that he does with the kids to provide the high structure, high support. And then he starts backing off that support, which means they start going out into the gen ed environment. And he even doesn't want to give them up, like they're out there full time and he still wants to hold on to them just in case. And
So they're
we're
like on his caseload.
they're on his
out
case,
getting it
yep.
90%
So
of the time.
we're
Yeah.
we're trying to pull the IEP out of his hand and he's like, okay, you know, kind of stuff. But the thing is that, yeah, so a lot of our older kids are not in the program. And so he does a wonderful job of just getting them transitioned out and then they go do check-ins and they'll see how they're doing. And so the numbers aren't as intense as they
Okay.
might look in terms of the programs are in chaos and the programs.
Yeah,
are-
yeah, no,
Yeah. Our smaller group, we have we were just talking today, we have a lot of 2nd graders that are dysregulated right now in our system.
And we actually had about,
Mhm.
I think we had about 5 K2 students move into our district that were coming from other districts in behavior programs.
IEPs.
Ours, yeah.
So you can't even budget for the unknowns like that, and then they show up.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we get to a point where in some cases, we maybe add paraeducator support later on to give another adult body in there or split it between. We just, you know, we're very thoughtful about that, but we at the same time, and they'll let us know. They will let us know when they're like at capacity. And you saw our preschool numbers, 64. We have typically started with 2 teachers, 4 sessions, an AM and a PM. And this year, for the first time ever, and then we generally by January, we'll hire a 5th halftime preschool teacher for a 5th session, AM or PM, right? We started with 5 sessions and we're now in December moving to 6. So we're having 3 full-time teachers. So our preschool numbers are just, you know, just popcorn and a jiffy pop. I mean, they're just pop, they just keep showing up. So we have challenges with space, of course. We have challenges, you know, so again, if the needs increase, we just start looking at, well, how can we support them in program? Before, you know, because we don't have capacity to say, oh, throw up another portable, or let's add 3 more teachers or 2 more teachers or even 1 more teacher. But then as we get towards spring, we start looking seriously about those numbers that we grow and fall, grow and fall, grow and fall. And we just see this slow trajectory up. I don't want to, anyway, they're just big numbers. But, and it's a moving system. There's lots of things happening. That 3.5% too is like 4 years ago, I checked with other districts and we were like at 3% at that time. We've gone up probably 100 students in our caseload since in 100 years, I mean, 4 years, 100 students.
Been doing this a lot.
100 years.
But there are some districts like, and can't, you know, explain any more than like Edmonds we're at 14%. Everett at 10% of their entire, that would be 90 one-on-ones for us, 96 one-on-ones for us, right? And so, you know, I don't know where they get the funding. I don't know how it works, but anyway, so we just spend a lot of time massaging that and looking at that and looking at the needs, and data is our biggest driver for it. So.
I guess following up on that, like you were asking about like the number of kids, would you want to see the data of like percentage in the behavior classroom
Yeah.
and out?
That, or,
Yeah.
yeah, like what their LRE
Mhm.
percentage is, like, cause again, you know, like, if they're out like majority of the time, they're not really, they're on the caseload, but they're not like consuming kind of like that time and energy, but it's just like, I just see the number, you know, like black and white, I'm like, that's a lot.
Mhm.
But if majority are out, then the
Yeah.
caseloads look different.
And this year too, it's not, if you'd have to remember last year, we had 3 SLE programs at 3 schools, 3 individual classrooms at 3 schools. So 3 teachers, 3 different schools. And we did a K-5 model and it was brutal. And we knew trying it out that it might be rough. Because you have kindergartners up to 5th grade, students with autism in the same classroom, right? Or if they could find another space, they would use that. And so we thought, okay, so we actually added 1 staff member this year. We had a reduction and we hadn't, so we're still down 1 from last year, sure. But anyway, we were able to put 2 classrooms, 2 teachers back at President's, and we made the decision to go with Kent Prairie, and we have 2 there. But already, you know, our numbers are at 10 and 11 in each classroom, which is, it's a challenge. It's
But isn't it primary and then intermediate?
Yes, it's generally K2, 3, 5. In our case of our Eagle Creek at the behavior, we're starting to push some second graders into the 3, 5 because there's capacity. And he does such a great job, you know, getting those kids out. We're constantly, Brenda, especially at the elementary level, is all the MDT meetings, making all the decisions whenever a staff or a team is talking about the student may need a one-on-one. She's on the phone with them right away. They call her, she's in at the, you know, the basic ground level, just working her way up to the process, so.
Thank you.
Any further questions? I just can't imagine how many emails, phone calls, and IEP meetings you guys have combined. Just unbelievable numbers. Thank you for all that you do for all of our kids.
Thank you.
Next up is our first reading of board policies. We'd like to welcome Eric Dion. We can make it all the way from the back. I know it's getting late. We've got a few different policies. They're all kind of connected.
They are.
Go for
Good
it.
evening. I'm Eric Kent, Executive Director of Human Resources. Happy to be here. We do have 4 policies, but they're basically, there's 2 for students and then 2 for staff, and they're basically the same policy, just for different audiences. So the first one is, and then you can see the change there from sexual harassment of students to sex-based harassment of students. So new regulations came out on these, as happened. Well, it's happening a lot, it seems like. We're getting new regulations on these policies. So it's quite a, there are some states that have filed lawsuits, so there's potentially more legal things coming on this, depending on how far those lawsuits go. So there's some injunctions in certain states and certain districts within other states that have sued basically to stop the implementation of some of these policies. Washington State has a lot of laws already in place that basically this isn't as big a deal in Washington because of state laws that are already in place. So, you know, no matter what your position on it is, the state law says, you know, these things are pretty much happening. So, I don't know if you have questions. These are, you can see they're all red because they're pretty all brand new from WASDA. We've following the WASDA model policies pretty closely, except for some of the review things. That's the only thing I really changed, which we just modeled what we had before. It doesn't really make sense to come present something when there's nothing to present. So try to make that sort of a condition on that there's actually something to present. So that's that one.
Just a quick question.
Yep,
Just a
you bet.
Curiosity question. So the teal words in the policy, are those changes to the changes? Like WASDA had the
Oh,
policy?
this one right here?
Yeah.
Yes, so that's a change to WASDA's recommendation.
that's what I was
Yes,
just
exactly,
curious.
Yeah,
So those were like our policies that we currently have in our district.
Yeah.
Maybe Boston doesn't have.
Or additional, no, they're
So, like-
additional.
I think you're looking
words.
at page 2.
Yeah, we have a different color. And so we're changing WASDA's
Yeah.
wording
We
there.
probably
So-
didn't actually need to have it crossed out, because it's not necessarily new, but it's just the policy.
Yeah.
The part here below the strikeouts, the strikeout was what WASDA had, and they actually had this on their previous policy too. And we changed it to what is down there now.
Yeah,
Just to kind of limit how many times somebody has to come present to you. There's plenty of things that we have to have annual reviews on already. It doesn't make sense to have an annual review, and there's not a legal requirement to do that either. You check that, make sure it's not a legal thing that we have to do an annual review. So. And the regulations change enough that we come here anyways and this is basically, kind of the annual review that we would be doing in this case.
So this is 3205.
Yep.
Sexual harassment of students prohibited. And you want to go to the next one, 3206?
Yeah, so this is just another, again, in addition to the regulations, it's about the pregnant and parenting students, and then again, the 50. The 5,000 series one as well as for pregnant staff members. Which we are, again, Washington, there's already many laws around these kinds of things and things that we have to follow. So it actually follows the same procedures and the same sort of investigation plans as we would use for 3205. So the procedures will kind of apply to both.
Any questions about either one of those? All right, do you want to pull up the next one? The 5011?
And you're gonna see a pretty, very similar type thing here, sex discrimination, sex-based harassment, so. Staff prohibited, so instead of students, now we're talking about staff. There are some additional training things that we had to do, like we had to incorporate this into which we had before, but we had to expand our training to district staff and our district day that we presented. So that's some things like
Is this
that.
on our vector training? Is this?
No.
No, it has to be in person.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
it's
a
in
required
person.
in-person training. That's what I did at the district day.
Huh,
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I don't, okay.
There are some that are required in person, some that are just required to have training, so it's
Okay, just a range of them.
We just, that we have the part of that morning after the whole staff,
Right, we break out, yeah.
I'm sure it's much more memorable when I present in person.
Mhm, Yes, yes.
Oh, yeah, Eric, that's what he said.
Ooh,
I remember.
the air show.
Uh-huh.
Right.
Highlighted everybody's day.
Any questions about this one or changes that you would like to? All right, next one is the 5012.
Yeah, and again, this mirrors, well,
Pregnant
not
staff.
mirrors, but we're talking about staff. So. Talking about we cannot discriminate against. Pregnancy, pregnant, et cetera, childbirth.
I do have one question.
Yep.
I don't know if you know the answer, but do we have any kind of lactation areas at our building?
We have to kind of figure that out on a case by case basis. Yeah, so we don't have, well, I guess individual buildings may have certain areas that they kind of reserve for that. There may be a conference room or a staff workroom or something that they would block off when you did it or something. I know when I was principal at Haller, or Post actually had,
Yeah, we
but back before laws were even in place, I mean, we still dealt with it. And so we found a way to make it work.
First reading.
Any changes for any of those very lengthy policies?
No.
Thank you, Eric, very much.
Yes.
Second.
All right, next up is our second reading and adoption of board policy 3432. Emergency preparedness and response, and this one we are taking action on. It's our second reading, and we will ask our student advisor to weigh in also.
Good evening. Second reading of policy 3432. State legislature made some changes in the 2024 session. This policy is regarding emergency response and our responsibilities to respond to emergencies. The change is in the section describing who would be receiving training on emergency response, and it added substitute teachers and other temporary employees to the list of folks that should be given information or provided instruction on how to deal with emergencies in the building. We have been doing this via our substitute teacher and new teacher and new classified and new substitute classified staff members during their orientation with us. We provide them information on the basic emergency responses and what we expect of them during an emergency. That's the only change to the policy is that addition.
Any suggested changes? Does our student advisor have an opinion about this one? Would you approve this?
Yes.
I appreciate that we're already doing it.
This subsistence.
And this is an action item. Do we have a motion to approve for second reading and adoption board policy 3432?
I make a motion to approve the second reading and adoption of board policy 3432.
I'll second.
It's been moved by Director Watts and seconded by Director Knapp to approve for second reading and adoption board policy 3432, emergency preparedness and response. Madam Clerk.
Director Diamond,
Yes.
Director Kelly,
Yes.
Director Watts.
Yes.
President Levesque,
Yes.
Director Knapp.
Yes.
The yeses have it,
Yeah.
and that policy is approved. Thank you. Next up is our informational items, and we'll go ahead and start with our superintendent's report. Dr. Sweden.
So first, I do have thank you notes, but I'm gonna save them for the next board meeting. And so what I will say that I just want to say we had some wonderful Veteran Day tributes across the district, and I want to thank the veterans for their service and giving of so much that they served. And I appreciate that. You had a veteran.
Thank you for your
Thank you for your service, Matt. And then also the Tempest production was well done. Well done, awesome performance. And then there's this playoff season, this fall sports, and we've got volleyball tonight, there's football going on this Saturday, cross country's been working there, it's still playoff season. And the last thing I'll say is that the board is headed to the WASDA conference next week. And we're going to learn together and also present together.
Thank you. Lovely update. Very concise. Next, we have our legislative update and discussion. Director Kelly.
I do not have anything to add tonight on legislative updates, just anticipating a longer legislative session. And I think Day on the Hill things are tweaked, so we're doing a training on a weekend. So then we're asked to meet with our legislators on our own time. And I think what I've understood from Marissa Rathbone is basically advocacy occurs all year. And I feel like Arlington has made positive strides in including our legislators to see what we're doing and hear our voice. So I think that's a huge benefit. So yes.
May I add something?
Yes.
So we have, there's December 12th is our kind of day on the Hill for Arlington and other districts in the county. And
Okay.
so we will be meeting as a board, those that can come, hopefully all of you, that Monday at 4 o'clock in the Lakewood Performing Arts Center.
Oh,
So it's there's going to be invitations coming out. It's just that there's a group of us working on that.
oh, okay.
That's our day on the hill. It's 4 o'clock.
Well,
No, I'm being serious. Like,
Day on the Lakewood Hill.
I'm calling it a day on the Hill because they're not doing a typical day on the Hill. They're encouraging us to
Right.
connect with our legislators. So
Like
I'm calling it
independently.
our connection with our legislators.
okay.
Yeah, so we're not gonna do like the
But
typical.
it's with, there's at least at this time, 10 other districts that will be joining us in their boards.
Okay.
Very cool. Thank you. Next up, we have our comments from our board members. I'd like to start with our student advisor, Deja. How's your homework?
There's a lot of it. That's about it. I more every single day. It's so much fun. It was really cool to see what Weston's doing with all their sorry, I can't think right now. With their mental health implements and stuff. I think that the therapy dogs is a really good idea, and I think it's really cute, like, not like cute, but I can't think of another word to like describe it. But, yeah. But, I think it's, fun that they're actively involving students in it, and so it's not like, they're having people train the dogs, but also like, they're having, students be a vital part in the training and the upbringing of the dogs. I think that's a really good idea.
Awesome, thank you for sharing. Dr. Knapp, do you have anything you'd like to share?
Just real quick, last week it was really great to go to the Student Advisory Council Mental Health Forum, so thank you for organizing that, and I think, you know, tying in with what Weston's doing, like, they've amazing, like, groundbreaking things that are happening in our district, and the students always give me a little hope, so that was really a bright spot in the week last week. And then, yeah, we were down at the Veterans Day Parade yesterday, so thank you for your service, and thanks. That's great, that's perfect. While we were marching. And then, looking forward to WASDA conference next week. And then super excited for the special education committee. So I just want to say thank you to, you know, cabinet and Superintendent Sweeting for listening and recognizing the need for that committee.
Yeah.
It was something that was missing. So I'm excited to see all the work that community and staff and parents and students can work together and achieve.
Director Kelly, anything else you'd like to add?
Just that it was, I appreciated hearing what Weston was doing. I mean, we did that tour kind of last at the beginning of summer last year, or this year, because it's blending, school years and annual. That was very, great listening to, as again, another dog, Maple, is, you know, being included in the Weston family. So I feel like Henry always exudes so much positivity. You would not think that the things that come her way actually occur on that campus. And I just really love that she's at the helm. I think she does a great job in that role, and she has such great staff. And just, yeah, the Youth Mental Health Forum was very good to hear students. What they shared was hard to hear, but it was just like, I like that we had adults in the room to hear those conversations, and I felt that they felt they were in a safe space to share those inner thoughts. And I think that's pretty big, considering like they didn't know me, they didn't know the other adults, and they felt comfortable sharing how they and others of their peer group feel right now. And it's felt like, oh my God, I am not jealous of being a teen in today's world, because I'm struggling as an adult. So you know, just all that we can do just to continue our work to support our young people and be the adults that they need to see. Looking forward to next week's travel.
Thank you. Director Diamond, anything you'd like to add?
Just to piggyback, the mental health forum was really cool. I was at the table with Clyde Shavers. He asked some very poignant questions of the table group. So it was really cool to see how interested and involved he was in. Excited for the special ed committee starting next week. Just kind of seeing how that, just for me, just kind of educational purposes in general. So I'm excited for that. And yeah, no, that's all I got.
All right, thank you. Director Watts?
I loved that Arlington Education Foundation was able to provide so much money to these grants that were very well written and very difficult to decide what to do. So it's really exciting to see them get their award and being behind the scenes of AEF. That was neat. Excited for WASDA next week. I got to go to the state meet for cross country. The boys had a little heartbreak, but when we picked up our son, Coach Murray said that they were in really good spirits and planning for Boise this weekend. But our girls did fantastic, and they get to race in the championship race in Boise for the regionals. So I will be there cheering them on after a very long drive. So.
For sharing. Go Eagles.
For the trip.
Yes, do you
I
want to
forgot,
discuss?
they were helping. No, I have for Sherry, all that you need for your trip. I have Erica as the driver of one of the cars, all that you need.
Matches.
Debbie put this all
Matches.
together.
Direction.
Directions, it has itineraries, it has, everything, you know, Debbie is very thorough.
Thank you.
And then what Debbie did also is that there are, you each have your color coded notes. It has, each of you have the full presentation. And then on each of your cards, it has your slide and then the talking points for.
Yeah, tell them to get readers. I know. What font is this, please?
It's whatever can fit.
But you can write.
Oh, my God.
Whatever can come in.
Yeah, I
You
can,
can
I don't need to read
to write.
I'm gonna study before we get.
I'll be. I won't be able to see the crowd, but I can read my paper. That's all that matters.
Thank you for putting all that together.
Yeah.
We
Thank you, Debbie.
Thank you,
Yes,
Debbie.
yes, kudos to Debbie.
I wanna
Don't leave them at home.
put them somewhere safe.
Yeah.
Someplace where they don't go with you. There's not another.
Making my little pile.
We'll have to double check before anybody gets in a car.
You have your card.
You have your card? All right, I wanted to say that I went to the Tempest because I had a little drummer boy in the pit orchestra and he did awesome, except for when he didn't. So, but he was so, we were so proud of him. Yeah, nobody knows when you don't hit the drum when you're supposed to. So, and then I did get to see the football game in the rain and it was awesome. It was so fun and I know we have another football game coming up this Saturday. And I got to see the parade yesterday. Our high schoolers did so good and we're so proud of them. And thank you to all of our veterans. And also I wanted to say happy birthday to Chris. So happy birthday. And I wanted to remind everybody about our next events that are coming up on our calendar. We have our WASDA conference next week on the 20th through the 23rd. Then we have our study session the Monday right after,
Right.
and that is at 4 o'clock. And then a regular meeting at 6 o'clock after that. So we have a very busy week next week and then Monday night also very busy. So is there anything else anybody has, or do we have a motion to adjourn our meeting?
Motion to adjourn.
Moved by Director Donovan and seconded by Director Knapp to adjourn the meeting. Madam Clerk.
Yeah. Director Diamond,
Yes.
Director Kelly,
Yes.
Director Watts,
Yes.
President Levesque.
Yes.
Director Knapp.
Yes.